What if the moment Iran went silent was the moment everything actually got worse? Because this is exactly what happened in Iran, and almost nobody saw it coming. Now, over the last few days, headlines faded, protest footage slowed down, social media went dark, and people around the world were told the exact same comforting story. The killing stopped.
Did Arab and Israeli officials convince you to not strike Iran?
Nobody convinced me. I convinced myself. You had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
The protests cooled. The regime backed down. But here's the problem, guys. The silence didn't come from peace. It came from control. And so while the world looked away, the Islamic Republic of Iran shut down the internet, flooded cities with armed patrols, and quietly brought in these foreign militias, including fighters that are tied to Hashad al-Shabi.
Look at this. Draw a line between you and the rioters. No one is allowed to be out, go inside your houses. So they have all these people riding around. Oh!
Why? To do what the cameras no longer could capture. Now, at the exact same time, President Donald J. Trump paused military action after being told executions had stopped.
Been notified and pretty strongly, but we'll find out what that all means. But we've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. So I've been told that a good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset, including you will be very upset, but that's just gotten to me, some information that the killing has stopped, that the executions have stopped. They're not going to have an execution, which a lot of people were talking about for the last couple of days. Today was going to be the day of execution.
But the streets are telling a completely different story. Because when regimes stop hanging people publicly and then start killing them quietly, that's not de-escalation. That is phase 2. Well, tonight, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's changed overnight, why Iran's sudden silence terrified intelligence agencies, and why this may already be the deadliest turn yet, even without airstrikes, even without headlines. Stick with me, guys, because this is the part that most people are missing. Drop a like and subscribe. Okay, let's go ahead and dig into this. Here's the first thing that most people got wrong about Iran. When the protests seemed to disappear, that wasn't relief. That was the warning sign. Regimes don't suddenly go quiet because they're listening. They go quiet because they're finished locking everything down. The streets didn't calm themselves. They were emptied. And when chants vanish overnight, it's usually because tanks replace crowds and fear replace momentum.
Further south in the city of Isfahan, Fox News was able to make contact with a man who is using Starlink. He described battles between protesters and security forces who are using live ammunition. On the call, he said the government has really repressed them using weapons of war against the demonstrators. At the moment, the situation for the demonstrators in the street, the atmosphere is like a war zone, and some people are trying to escape from it. I have to emphasize that among Iranian people, Trump is the most popular person right now. He has so much popularity because of the steps that he took toward preventing the growth of terrorism in the Middle East. They respect him. The internet blackout in Iran continues, making it difficult for people to get new information, although international calls were briefly going through overnight. Further south in the city of Isfahan, Fox News was able to make
And so this is the psychological trap that authoritarian systems rely on. Outsiders see silence and assume de-escalation. Inside the country, though, people understand exactly what this means. Historically, silence follows saturation, full force, full compliance, and that, my friends, is exactly when control is tight enough that resistance becomes invisible, not gone. And so once a regime reaches that phase, it doesn't negotiate, it consolidates. The absence of noise isn't peace. It's proof that coercion's working. And this is why what happened next should have terrified everyone who's paying attention. This is where it gets worse. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps didn't need to announce martial law. They implemented it without the paperwork. Armored patrols flooded major cities, checkpoints appeared overnight, curfews were enforced at gunpoint, hospitals stopped being neutral zones, and they became hunting grounds for wounded protesters. And so by avoiding a formal declaration, the regime sidestepped international triggers while still achieving total compliance at home. There were no headlines, no legal thresholds crossed on paper, but functionally the country was under siege. This was a modern authoritarian tactic, rule by presence, not proclamation. So when soldiers are everywhere, words don't matter, and when people are afraid to step outside to buy food, protest isn't even a calculation anymore, it's survival. Martial law didn't arrive with a speech.
Look at this. Draw a line between you and the rioters. No one is allowed to be out, go inside your houses. So they have all these people riding around. Oh!
It arrived with rifles and silence. And so here's the part that most people completely ignored. The Islamic Republic of Iran didn't just crack down, it outsourced the crackdown. That's right, guys. Nearly 5,000 fighters tied to Hashid al-Shabi crossed in from Iraq, and they were deployed inside of Iranian cities. Now, this is not crowd control. This is occupation behavior. Regimes only import foreign militias when they no longer trust their own population or their own security forces to do the job. Now, these fighters, they don't have family ties. There's no community pressure or hesitation. They are there to enforce obedience and not restore order. So this move signals something deeper. The regime wasn't trying to calm the unrest. It was preparing for a long suppression phase. So when a government brings in outsiders with guns to police its own citizens, it's admitting that it has crossed a line that it can't come back from. And while all of this is happening, while regimes tighten control and people are blindsided by changes that they never saw coming, there is a similar version of the same shock that hits millions of Americans every single year. So a retiree stared at a pharmacy receipt in disbelief. Same medication, same dosage, new Medicare plan year, double the cost. There was no warning, there was no explanation, just a bill that quietly rewrites your budget. And this is exactly how Medicare catches people off guard, not with one big headline, but with sudden changes that only show up when it's too late. Formularies change. Coverage shifts, costs spike overnight. And this is why I partner with Chapter. Chapter helps prevent medication shocks by reviewing your Medicare coverage every year before those changes hit your wallet. Now, most people, they're already dialing the phone number on the bottom of your screen, or they're clicking the link in the description down below to go to askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279 to make sure that their coverage still protects them, because silence isn't safety, whether it's a government or a plan that you assume wouldn't change. And so I want you to forget the tanks, forget the patrols. The real signal came when the Islamic Republic of Iran shut the internet down nationwide. That wasn't defensive. That was strategic. Blackouts collapse coordination, they erase evidence, and they isolate citizens from the outside world all at once. Videos stop uploading, deaths stop trending, and silence gets misread as stability. Now, if the killings had truly stopped, the internet would have come back online, but instead, the blackout stretched on, longer than almost any modern shutdown on record.
I will say a real game changer on that is a decision that Elon Musk made to provide Starlink to Iran and provide it free of charge. That's transformational, because you know what? The Ayatollah can't shut down Starlink, and it's letting the Iranian people speak. We're getting videos, bootleg videos that are coming out via Starlink. That's really important to be able to communicate. It's one of the many ways that America has to support those who are rising up against tyrannies.
Now that tells you that the regime needed darkness, not calm. That's why the shutdown took place. Authoritarian systems, they fear cameras more than crowds because cameras create accountability. So once the feeds go dark, the real work begins. There's no witnesses, there's no timestamps, there's no pressure. This wasn't about restoring order. This was about finishing the crackdown off camera. So here's where the official story completely collapses. Even CNN, not exactly friendly territory, reported that there was zero proof that Iranian security forces actually stopped shooting protesters. So what changed wasn't the violence, it was the visibility.
Representative of the Islamic Republic directly, you have tried to kill me 3 times. I have seen my would-be assassin with my own eyes in front of my garden in my home in Brooklyn. In United States of America, in the courthouse, I have seen my would-be assassin confessing that they have been hired by the Revolutionary Guards to end my life. My crime? Simply echoing the voice of innocent people that you killed them. Your leader, Ali Khamenei, he ordered my killing. He said that American agent who compared compulsory hijab to the Berlin Wall must be killed. I am that woman, and I am not the agent of America. I have agency, but I am thankful to American government and the law enforcement to protect my life. And it was not, if it was not the protection of the law enforcement, I couldn't have been here to testify for millions of people who are facing the same killers, facing the same terrorist regime in my country.
Public executions were paused, headlines slowed, and the regime pointed to that pause as evidence of restraint. But intelligence assessments told a completely different story. Shootings continued, just off the main squares, off live streams, off of social media. This is a classic pivot. So when executions draw too much attention, regimes move the killings to alleys and homes and checkpoints and hospitals. They didn't stop killing. They changed the method, and that distinction matters because it explains exactly why death estimates just keep on climbing after protests appear to fade. Silence didn't mean mercy. It meant that the crackdown entered a phase that doesn't need cameras. And so now we have to talk about Donald J. Trump because timing matters. Trump was told mass executions had been canceled, and on paper that looked like progress. In response, he paused military action, not as a surrender, but as leverage. And strategically, that makes sense if the regime is acting in good faith.
Look, I think the U.S. should be taking every step possible to end this regime. The Ayatollah Khamenei hates America. He regularly leads massive mobs chanting death to America. In fact, every year in Iran, they celebrate as a holiday Death to America Day. It's the anniversary of the Iranian Revolution and taking over the U.S. Embassy in 1979. And so the reason that President Trump ordered a B-2 attack on Iran's nuclear facilities is he made the right decision as commander-in-chief that if that theocratic dictator got nuclear weapons, the odds were unacceptable that he would use nuclear weapons to murder thousands or even millions of Americans. That was the single most important foreign policy decision the president has made this second term.
Now, the problem is authoritarian systems exploit pauses. They use these delays to finish suppression while pressure eases. So this is not about blaming Trump. This is about understanding the consequence. So when a regime hears, oh, wait a second, right? It doesn't hear diplomacy. It hears opportunity to shut down streets, shut off the internet, import militias, and clean up resistance quietly. Pauses can save lives, or they can give regimes the time that they need to make resistance disappear. So while the streets inside of Iran were being sealed off, pressure was building on Donald J. Trump from every direction. Now, on the one side, hawks like Lindsey Graham argued that hesitation only emboldens authoritarian regimes and that decisive action saves lives long term. But on the other side, allies weighed regional consequences, escalation risks, and timing, including Israel, where Benjamin Netanyahu has to balance deterrence with fallout. So this split matters because indecision at the very top, it kind of reads very differently depending upon where you're standing. Now, in Washington, D.C., it looks like deliberation. Inside of Iran, it looks like a green light. So regimes, they don't wait for clarity. They act while uncertainty buys them room. And this is exactly the window that authoritarian systems exploit the best. So let's go ahead and say this once, okay? I want to say it once and clearly and then move on. The streets did not go quiet because people gave up their beliefs. They went quiet because the chants were replaced by machine guns. Families stayed home because curfews were enforced with bullets, not warnings. So when armored vehicles sit on corners and foreign militias knock on doors, protest stops being courage, it starts being a death sentence. That is not a movement losing steam. And when outside observers mistake that silence for calm, regimes gain exactly what they want: time. Time without cameras, time without pressure, time to decide who gets arrested tomorrow. Silence under authoritarian rule, it's never neutral. It is an outcome deliberately produced, carefully maintained, and deeply unstable. And once it settles in, what comes next? It's almost always worse. So this is the phase that most people never see in real time. Once the streets are quiet and the cameras are gone, regimes move methodically. Lists get finalized, IDs get cross-checked, tips get rewarded. In Iran, officials openly talked about going door to door to identify rioters and terrorists. Now that language is not accidental. It is legal cover. When protesters are reclassified as terrorists, arrests don't need trials and disappearances don't need explanations. This phase is not chaotic, it's administrative. It happens at night, quietly, neighborhood by neighborhood, and this is exactly why silence is so dangerous. Quiet phases, they don't precede reconciliation. They precede reprisals. And so by the time that the outside world realizes what happened, the lists are already acted on. This is how authoritarian systems make resistance disappear without another headline. So here's a hard truth about the crackdowns. The death toll never spikes when protests are loud. It spikes after they go quiet. And so in blackout conditions, bodies don't show up on social media, hospitals stop reporting, families are warned not to speak. This is why early numbers always look lower than expected. And this is also why they're always revised upward months later. The lag isn't accidental, it's structural. Now, in Iran, estimates climbed even as the protests appeared to fade because violence didn't stop, documentation did. Authoritarian regimes understand this math. Silence buys them time, and time blurs accountability. So by the time the evidence emerges, attention has already moved on to something else. And this is how thousands can disappear between headlines and why the quietest moments often produce the loudest body counts. So here is the uncomfortable dynamic that nobody likes to talk about. When people inside of Iran hear that outside help might be coming, behavior changes immediately. Movements pause, people wait, they conserve energy, they avoid taking risks because intervention feels close. And this is exactly where authoritarian regimes gain the upper hand. Hope without action doesn't mobilize. It freezes. It isn't about intentions. It's about incentives. When Donald J. Trump signaled restraint after being told executions were paused, many protesters interpreted that as, hold on a second. But regimes don't hold on. They move fast while movements wait. Now that gap between expectation and reality, it's deadly. It buys the state time to isolate leaders, map networks, and finish suppression quietly.
Rob, the other thing as Treasury, who carries out the sanctions, we can see is we are now seeing the rats fleeing the ship because we can see millions, tens of millions of dollars being wired out of the country, snuck out of the country by the Iranian leadership. So they are abandoning ship, and we are seeing it come into banks and financial institutions all over the world. And what we do at Treasury is we follow the money, whether it is through the typical banking system or through digital assets. We are going to trace these assets, and they will not be able to keep. Rob,
sometimes the promise of help delays adaptation, and delay is exactly when crackdowns depend on. So this is the moment that history usually misses. No airstrikes, no breaking news banners, no viral clips, just silence. And that's when authoritarian regimes do the most damage. Now, in Iran, the absence of footage didn't mean the absence of violence. It meant the absence of witnesses. This is the deadliest turn precisely because it's happening off camera. There's no pressure cycles, there's no trending hashtags, there's no urgency abroad, just methodical control at home. Silence lets the world move on while repression finishes its work. And this is why nothing happening is often the most dangerous phase of all. Not because the threat is gone, but because it's no longer visible. When headlines fade and streets go quiet, that's not the end of the story. This is when it locks in.